3 years.
Walton's Mountain.
I'm not entitled. This is Fox and Friends, Martha. I get buried in the basement here.
Oh, yeah. Well, all I can say, Hannity, is you've got to come look at this. I got great staff, great team, but we're in a child's desk. So
we don't have margaritas here, but you're going to be on my show tomorrow night. I'm looking forward to it.
You got it, Hannity. Great show tonight.
Have a good show.
All right. Good evening from New York again tonight. I'm Laura Ingraham, and this is the Ingraham Angle. Now, maybe it's all the snow, but the blizzard of news, like Hannity just said from Washington, it seems more blinding by the day and night. Attorney General Sessions fired Andrew McCabe for this lack of candor. But now it looks like the former deputy FBI director was actually investigating Sessions for the same thing. Isn't that clever? Kim Strassel will help us dissect it all from the Wall Street Journal and analyze the latest unhinged ruminations by the former Obama CIA chief, John Brennan. Plus, left-wing actor Jim Carrey, it wasn't The Mask, the last good movie he did, is painting himself into a corner, and we're going to wash the canvas for you. You don't believe this. And then old Amtrak Joe Biden tries to bolster his virility. Who wrote that? By picking a random fight with the president. A restraining order may be required. Wait until you hear the latest. But first, the president has second thoughts, kind of, about congressional spending? That's the focus of tonight's angle. The president vowed to defund. So how on earth do Republicans expect the voters to turn out in November for them if they can't live up to the basic precepts of what they campaigned on? This ridiculous omnibus, and we have to keep moving the camera angles here, but this thing, people have to see what this is because you don't really get it if you don't see it. Look at this thing. Again, I want you to see this. This is your tax dollars at work. This is it. $1.6 billion in this disaster is devoted to border security. That's it. And a paltry $641 million to the wall the president campaigned on. How many times? That's a pittance. And it's not even close to what the president requested to ensure that the wall would actually get built, not just lip service. Well, last night I raised this concern and others to Majority Whip Steve Scalise. This is an opportunity, Congressman, to defund sanctuary cities and to get the real money for the wall that the president campaigned on, and he won the election on that wall. Defund Planned Parenthood, $500 million. I know you agree with me on this, but $500 million to Planned Parenthood. The Republicans are in charge, and they punt it. That is mind-boggling.
Well, hold on a second.
All right. Well, we didn't hear what he said there, but he was like he agrees with us. But, well, perhaps the president was actually watching the angle. I hope so. Earlier today, he reconsidered his support of the omnibus bill, and he called Speaker Paul Ryan and Majority Leader McConnell to the White House for a meeting. Now, in a statement, White House Press Secretary Sarah Sanders announced the president and the leaders discussed their support for the bill, which includes more funds to rebuild the military, such as the largest pay raise for our troops in a decade, more than 100 miles of new construction for the border wall, and other key domestic priorities like combating the opioid crisis and rebuilding our nation's infrastructure. Now, this is curious. Ryan and McConnell obviously pushed the president to support this bill, and they're right, there are some good things in the bill. But the big push was, Mr. President, you cannot afford a government shutdown on Friday. Now, that's how they always do it. They make you agree to blow your promises and your principles by putting a gun to your head. Oh, this will be terrible. You shut the government down. Look, it pains me to say this, but the president is buying a pig in a poke here. He won on calling out the establishment, on naming names. Yes, even it would have made things uncomfortable. So I have a question. Where did that Donald Trump go? And where does all our money go in this bill that's too big for even us to show on camera regularly? Well, it's money, by the way, that we don't have. We're either going to have to borrow from China, Japan, or Germany, etc., or print. But where does it go in this discretionary part of this spending leviathan? Well, the Pentagon budget balloons to an obscene $700 billion. That's more than $80 billion over current limits. Yes, I said $80 billion. Sanctuary cities? Fully funded. Jerry Brown's happy. Planned Parenthood? $500 million to the death factory. Oh, and something called, get this, community development block grants to cities. that's, by the way, what President Trump wanted stripped from this budget, will nearly double to $5.2 billion. And then there's the Obama-era transportation grant program known as Tiger. I don't know what that is. I love tigers, but I can't love this. This would have its budget tripled to $1.5 billion. I could go on and on and on. We only got an hour tonight. Now, if I were advising the president, I want to tell him, take this as an opportunity tonight to challenge the GOP leadership. There'd be no signature on the omnibus bill without a guarantee of full funding for the wall and a total defunding of the sanctuary cities across this country. And another thing, he should never sign this omnibus spending bill without first securing a commitment from Democrats to allow confirmation votes for all of his major nominees, which are clearly stuck in committee. And I'm talking about ambassadors like Rick Grinnell for ambassador to Germany and so many others, judges, district court judges, and assistant secretaries, deputy secretaries, other key personnel. This is the bare minimum that the president should agree to. This move would also have the added benefit, not the primary, but it's an added benefit, of taking the focus off Stormy Daniels and company and all the other people they're putting on TV on the other cables and return the focus to substance. That's where Trump does best. The American people did not elect Trump or the GOP Congress to fill the swamp. We elected them to drain it. And the fact that the military contractors and lobbyists are clinking champagne glasses at Washington steakhouses tonight, that should concern everyone. The conservative approach is to shrink government, not expand it. Spending more and perpetuating Obama-era programs is a recipe for fiscal and electoral disaster, even with some of the good stuff that is in this bill. And that's the angle. Joining me now for reaction is Republican Congressman Mark Meadows, who's the chairman of the House Freedom Caucus, and Representative Raja Krishnamurthy, who's a Democrat from Illinois. It's great to see both of you. Let's start with you, Congressman Meadows. I just delivered some tough medicine. Maybe it was too tough, maybe it was too harsh, but you know that's what I'm going to do. But when I look at this legislation, I like to call it legislation. It's more than 1,000. There it is. I think this is not draining the swamp. Who's actually reading this, Congressman? Who has read this entire bill tonight?
Well, I can tell you, no one's read the entire bill. Some 2,232 pages that we just got a little over an hour ago. I'm about 200 pages into it. Obviously, we have staff going through it. But really, this is not about draining the swamp. And when you look at this particular bill, were you too harsh? No, the answer is no. You could have been a lot harsher. I mean, we continue to fund sanctuary cities. We continue to fund Planned Parenthood. We don't build the wall, but yet we put money in for a tunnel. The last time I checked, when the president was campaigning, he wasn't campaigning for a tunnel between New Jersey and New York. He was campaigning about a border wall on our southern border. And so, you know, there's a lot to be disappointed. We're still going through this, but I'm not very optimistic that there will be conservative wins in this.
Congressman Krishnamurthy, if I'm a Democrat and I see the House is in Republican hands, the Senate's in Republican hands, and we have a Republican, a conservative populist Republican like Donald Trump in the White House, and I see Planned Parenthood funded, sanctuary cities funded, Chuck Schumer gets his not a lot to be upset about, really, in this budget, all things considered. Your reaction?
Well, look, I think that the president's supportive on a lot of shared priorities. It fully funds military and domestic programs, additional funding for the opioid crisis, which is just ravaging our district. And then it helps to increase funding for NIH, as well as making sure our veterans are taken care of. I think I haven't read the whole bill, as Mark mentioned, but I'm optimistic. I'm hopeful that we can come to a compromise by tomorrow.
Now, you haven't read the bill, and I'm not criticizing you because there's no one. I mean, the Evelyn Wood A+ citation student couldn't read this bill, okay? So I'm not criticizing you because you just got this. Now, given what we know about our current debt levels, yes. It's exploded under the President Obama, exploded under Bush, and now it's set to increase by, you know, could be increased by another $1 trillion. Mark, tell me if I'm wrong about this, under what we're looking at tonight. Don't we have a moral obligation to be honest with the American public about where we're getting the money to fund all these important priorities? China, Japan, Germany, all the people we're borrowing it from, and all the printing we're going to have to do, because we don't have this money, do we?
Well, we don't. And Laura, here's one of the interesting things. Yes, we'll end up with $1 trillion deficit, probably that will come out in October of this year, $1 trillion plus. But here's the other interesting thing. You don't have to read the fine print to understand that we're going to grow the size of government by 12 to 13%. So when you're looking at that kind of growth, I don't know that his district or my district, anybody back home saw a 13% increase in their wages, but yet we're somehow going to give government a raise like that. Here's the other problem, Laura, is this. We have a Republican-controlled House. We have a Republican-controlled Senate, and we have a Republican in the White House, and we have a Democrat here tonight saying how great this bill is. There is a problem there when you have that.
Well, I think the right honorable gentleman from North Carolina makes some points.
Congressman, first of all, I already like you because you came on the show. A lot of your colleagues won't, but I already like you because you're being honest. Like, you have to be. This is a good bill for Democrats. It's good. The military gets tons of funding, and that's all great. Military needs a raise. I understand that. But you're smiling. It's not just because you're hanging out with us on a whatever the heck this is, Wednesday night. You're having fun. This is a good deal for Democrats. I'm sorry.
How can you not smile when you're standing next to Congressman Meadows? Look, the bottom line is this. I think, look, I haven't read the full bill. I haven't made my final decision on this. But if it fully funds military programs, right now our military readiness is at all-time lows. Secretary Mattis has said we can't go on yet another continuing resolution, a stopgap budget. It would hurt the military. If for no other reason,
maybe we should think about that next time we commit our troops to some godforsaken country, right? I mean, maybe we should think about what it's going to cost before we submit our troops again to another multiple deployment, intervention. I mean, it's all well and good now to say we're in the hole like $5 trillion, but
right. But Laura, here's the other thing: is if we wanted to fund the military, why didn't we just put forth the funds to fund the military and deal with the non-defense discretionary separate? But somehow we put them together so that we grow the size of government. That's the problem.
Well, I think we got to take care of the veterans. We got to take care of the opioid crisis.
Okay, the veterans. We always hear about the veterans. It's veterans, veterans. Every time I raise an issue about the bill, people say we got to take care of the veterans. Okay, I understand that, but we also have other issues that are weighing down on the American public. And I do believe tonight the American people have to understand this. We're going to have 438 congressmen, we've got 100 senators going to vote on this legislation in the next, 72 hours, guys? 72 hours, something like that?
Probably quicker than that,
Okay,
yes.
48 hours. And I would say 98% of them, and I'm being charitable, will not have read this. And we're going to have to pass it to see what's in it. We're back in that stage. And I know there's good stuff. People will get some help. But we've got to go back to the regular order where each department gets a budget and each budget is voted on and we can have some transparency. And maybe it's this long. Maybe it's this long.
I really think Speaker Ryan, I'm really disappointed that Speaker Ryan didn't present us with a budget, this particular bill sooner than tonight. We need regular order around here so that I'm rank and file. I'm not leadership.
I got it.
I don't run the trains around here. All I can say is I need more time to read through this thing. I'd like to work with people like Congressman Meadows and make it a better bill. But if the choice is not funding the troops, not taking care of the veterans, not taking care of the opioid crisis, and a shutdown, I can't do that. I just can't do that.
Congressman, they're putting you in that position, and it's the way Washington works. Like, you got to do it, you got to do it, you got to pass it because otherwise the troops aren't going to get. It's just ridiculous. You cannot. I mean, we cannot do this to the American taxpayers and our future generations. But Congressman Meadows, Congressman Krishnamurthy, it's great to have you both on. Fantastic,
great to be with you.
Fantastic segment, and it's complicated, so we really appreciate it. And coming up, what a fired FBI official may have done to try to bring down a member of Trump's cabinet? Yes, Kim Strassel, Wall Street Journal, here to explain next.
The Ingraham Angle is brought to you by Liberty Mutual Insurance. Liberty stands with you.
Liberty Mutual stood with me when I was too busy with the kids to get a repair estimate. I just snapped a photo and got an estimate in 24 hours.
My insurance company definitely doesn't have that.
You can leave worry behind.
Shake the upper hander with a...
The lawyer tells Fox News that Jeff Sessions is not under criminal investigation for perjury allegedly committed during his confirmation hearing. But ABC News reports that former FBI official Andrew McCabe investigated whether Sessions did tell the truth about his contacts with Russia. Sessions fired McCabe last week for what the FBI called his own lack of candor. Let's get into all of this with Wall Street Journal reporter Kim Strassel, Democratic strategist and attorney Scott Bolden, and Saul Weisenberg, who was deputy independent counsel in the Bill Clinton Whitewater investigation. Great to see all of you.
Good evening.
Kim, let's start with you on this. This is wild. So we got McCabe, who reportedly was investigating or wanted to investigate Jeff Sessions for what he said about his contacts with the Russians. This took a wild turn today.
Yeah, well, isn't it a coincidence that this story leaks just as you have a number of Senate Democrats that are trying to revive this whole argument that they made months ago that Sessions misled them? Of course, that was a bunch of nonsense. He was very honest that he had forgotten that he bumped into a Russian ambassador at some event, that he misspoke. But now we find out that at the bequest of two Democratic senators, the FBI went so far as to investigate whether or not Sessions had lied in front of Congress, which is astonishing to think that the FBI was doing this. Now, Saul Weisenberg, I want to go to you here. When I first heard this story today, I said, this is like, we're now on a completely different planet. I mean, this is the deputy FBI director investigating Sessions on a, I guess, perjury, lack of candor, and then he gets fired for the same thing. What is your pulse on this now, given what Chuck Cooper, Sessions' lawyer, said today?
I am absolutely appalled by this. Laura, this is, to me, the most scandalous thing I have ever talked about on your show. There are three big stories here. There are three big parts of this. First, as Kim said, it's highly unusual for something like this to happen. Administration officials from both parties go before Congress all the time. They make misstatements. They're accused by the other side of perjury. There's almost never an investigation. There wasn't an investigation opened of Eric Holder when he made false statements about the Fast and Furious investigation, and I don't think he was perjuring himself. There wasn't even an investigation of Jim Clapper when he said the NSA didn't collect data, and everybody knows he was intentionally lying. So that's the first thing. That's highly unusual. The second thing is Andrew McCabe, by the time he opened this investigation, was already toxic. He had already been outed by the Wall Street Journal for his role in the Clinton investigation and had already been forced to recuse himself. And then months later, after all of that, he doesn't recuse himself. This Clinton person affiliated with, his wife is affiliated with Clinton cronies, doesn't recuse himself and himself opens an investigation. I got to tell you something. I want your viewers to know this. This isn't talk show BS. This doesn't happen. This is highly unusual. It is highly corrupt in my view. The third thing that I don't want people to forget is that Chuck Cooper, Jeff Sessions' lawyer, doesn't lie. And he made it very clear. Bob Mueller has told him Jeff Sessions is not under investigation anymore. He was spoken to. He is not considered to be under investigation for perjury, which is good because the whole concept of it is, as Kim said, preposterous. So this is actually, to me, an amazing story, and you would have to know how the DOJ works and FBI works to know how totally improper and unusual this is.
Scott Bolden.
Well, let me just say this. I know how both work, and I don't think the story is preposterous. I also don't think that this investigation, that you're probably putting too much on it. It could certainly be an inquiry. It would be in his interest, Sessions' interest and the FBI's interest, to know whether he had misled Congress or lied to Congress. You know, you could mislead Congress, and that's still illegal. And so whether it was an inquiry or an investigation, I think once Mueller took over, if Mueller says he's not under investigation anymore, what he means is he's not under investigation at this point, because that investigation continues, and if there's some facts that support going back to Sessions, because remember now, he didn't lie once, he lied twice or misled them twice by saying he did not have those
meetings. He didn't lie, Scott. This is,
if he lied, I said lie or mislead them.
If he lied,
can I say
how
that?
many of you think that the special counsel wouldn't have been on this like 7 on 8? I'm sorry,
if you can't prove a lie, that doesn't mean he didn't lie or that he misled them. The bottom line here is this. I think it's a non-story at this point because McCabe is gone, Sessions is there, and Mueller says there's nothing there for now.
Well, that's convenient. We got a lot of fish to fry here. No, but we got to move on to Brennan.
It's just practical. I'm a practical Democrat. I don't know about the Republicans on the panel, but I'm practical.
I got you. We got to move on to Brennan. We can talk about McCabe for an hour. We got to move on to Brennan. This is what the former sea lance and intimate about something that he did have probably some personal knowledge of, because he admitted many times that he unmasked individuals and that apparently nobody was ever denied a request to unmask. That was back last May. So you don't have a problem with him going on TV jawboning about this, really? Come on.
Given Donald Trump's coddling, if you will, Putin, a dictator who kills and presses the press and kills
when he put sanctions on them, or when he's funding the
he's funding the Ukrainians? Of the sanctions on them, and he sat for a month and a half after the House and Senate presented it to him, and he still wouldn't impose those sanctions.
Tougher on the Russians than Obama ever was, I can tell you that. Saul, let's go to this.
When
I got one more thing.
Elections and you don't do anything, that's a super problem like none other before.
Yeah, I got to go to one other thing. Saul, I want to go back to this issue of what we're seeing now with the Justice Department. Christopher Wray came out. We don't have time to play the soundbite, but he came out on Nightly News last night, and he said he'd never been pressured by Trump, no influence on the Russia investigation, didn't feel like any pressure, and it was almost like a surprise to people. Then it kind of died, that story, after the FBI director was interviewed. But that was actually interesting in all of the other stuff that's being covered.
Well, it was interesting, and it's totally consistent with the fact that Horowitz is the person that sent a portion of his report. Everybody knows that he's a nonpartisan. He was, except perhaps the president, he was appointed to that particular position by President Obama. He's got a sterling reputation. He's the one who sent his report to the career person appointed by Mueller at DOJ at the Office of Professional Responsibility. They made the decision. It's just preposterous to suggest that they were pressured in any way. Now, you can talk about that. You can speculate that with the Attorney General, but you certainly can't with the people who generated this report and made the recommendation. And I just say one thing about Scott?
Real fast. We're out of time.
I told him that if he disagreed with me tonight, I was not going to buy him a steak at the Prime Rib next week. And so I warned him, and he screwed up.
Oh, God bless. The Prime Rib.
Poquito. I agree with you. Un poquito.
We'll have to carbon date you.
You can buy me one.
At the Prime Rib. My God, that's circa 1982.
He's bribing your guest. He's bribing your guest, Lord. That can't be allowed.
All right, guys, I'm just teasing. All right, great segment. By the way, a major Catholic university is jettisoning its mascot over concerns that it's too violent and Islamophobic. And Disney World has a Me Too tonight. I did it the wrong way. Well, we really exposed what's going on behind the big cultural stories of the day. A Catholic college has killed its mascot of almost 100 years. Disney remaking a major attraction in the name of Me Too and the political art of Jim Carrey. To explain it all, Fox News contributor, author of the Will Wilder series, Raymond Arroyo, book number 3 coming out soon. All right, this is crazy. Now, let's go to Jim Carrey. Now, what is it with the funny man, or at least formerly funny man, pet detectives, political cartoons? And he's like, is he sitting in a room by himself just scratching away at
He released these strange images, first of Sarah Huckabee Sanders. We'll put it on the screen.
Yeah.
It looks like it was written drawn in an insane asylum or something. And he wrote nasty things here. He says, this is a portrait of a so-called Christian whose only purpose is to lie for the wicked, monstrous. Well, he got attacked for that, naturally. It's bigoted. It's anti-Christian.
Doesn't look like her at all.
Then he released an image of Donald Trump this week as the Wicked Witch of the West Wing.
Oh, that's not even funny.
Something is wrong with the man.
Oh, no, what?
Something
he looks
is really
like Freddy
wrong.
Krueger with the blue hat.
Yeah,
is that the Freddy Krueger with the, or Jason? No,
and
it's Freddy Krueger.
Those are
Jason has the hockey
flying
mask.
monkeys behind him. But
oh my God,
we dug into the video archive and we found Seinfeld talking to Jim Carrey, walking into the inner sanctum of this so-called art. Watch.
Okay.
This is the womb for me, and I just love paint. I love the colors. I love everything about it. Yeah, the gorilla with the machine gun. I got power now.
Something
looks
wrong
like a
with
murder scene.
No,
what was that?
It is an insane.
Like
it's an insane asylum. But you know what's so sad?
Yeah.
First of all, I wish that his movies got as much attention as these political cartoons. Now he has inspired me, Laura.
Yeah.
I resumed my own political art today. Jim Carrey, smoking no more.
Smoking?
And I have another illustration to share with you later. But you know what's so sad?
Yeah.
He was the comic heir to my pal Jerry Lewis. This man was so funny in his heyday. Go back, you know, to steal somebody's line, shut up and clown. That's the best
shut
thing
up and
to
make us
do.
laugh. All right,
Make us
Holy
laugh.
Cross. Got to go to Holy Cross College.
Oh, boy.
Now, why is Holy Cross, which is in Massachusetts,
Yes.
Springfield, Worcester, Mass. It's a Jesuit college.
Right.
Now, it's removing part of its logo, but it's keeping its name. What are they embarrassed about now?
They are
there
the
it is.
Crusaders.
Wait, what's that? That's
that's
the
a crusader with the sword. They are stripping
cool-
their logo
I like
and
that.
their mascot because it is violent and Islamophobic.
Well,
Now,
so is football, but we still do that.
well, the chairman of the board, as well as lined up in a red lady in red, is
No one
being
can follow
auctioned
this.
off. Well, they've decided that this is too controversial and it's a Me Too moment, so they're updating it with this.
Okay, this is what they're updating it
It's
with.
now a pirate queen. She's
What?
no longer auctioned off.
Oh my God, it looks like Johnny Depp in drag. What is that?
So we went from a wench being auctioned off to a pirate queen. We turned her into a thief, and here she is thieving, rips off the rum supply. I'm waiting for them to take Trixie, the overweight country bear jamboree singer, who I think really they've fat shamed her all these years, at least 50 years. Time for Trixie to come down. Maybe the little hula girls at the Small World, they need to come out as well.
Did I tell you I got
Who
stuck?
else is
I got
offended?
stuck on that ride. It's a Small World. I was stuck in there for like 45 minutes. I was like Terry Garr and in Tootsie when she's stuck in the bathroom. I was on It's a Small World.
Boy,
is
that's a
scary-
connection.
No, that's a
All
scary.
right, so I'm going to come back later and share with you my Ingraham Angle political art inspired
this
by
is
Jim
terrifying.
Carrey.
They're wrapping us. This is wrapping us.
End of
Seen
the
and
show.
unseen
Stay for that.
and out of time. Now, what has PETA got against Labrador retrievers? Stick around. The sweet, cuddly, beautiful, wonderful Labrador retriever, the state dog of Ohio. What's the problem with that? So we thought we'd ask PETA Associate Director Ashley Byrne, who joins us from L.A., and we're delighted she's with us. Ashley, okay, so again, for people who are watching, they don't kind of follow the controversies about shelter dogs versus dogs that are bred. Ohio wants to have the dog as its official dog, and other states have dogs as their official dogs, which was new to me until today. We have dogs that are like the Catahoula dog, which is Louisiana's dog. We have Alaska, the Malamute. We have New Hampshire, the Chinook. I thought that was a helicopter. We had Pennsylvania, the Great Dane, and so why are you guys at PETA upset that the lab is going to be Ohio's official dog?
Well, don't get me wrong. We love all dogs, and we love it when people make a point of recognizing how wonderful dogs are. The problem is that when you do something to promote a specific dog breed, what we see is people running out and buying lots of those dogs, and that means lots of those dogs eventually ending up in shelters after they've been purchased on a whim, and also lots of dogs being bred by puppy mills where they're kept in deplorable conditions. It also means less dogs, less mutts being adopted from shelters.
All right, fewer
when you
dogs.
Consider the fact that
you're worried that because Ohio will name the lab as its official dog, that all these random Ohioans who apparently have never heard of the lab before will suddenly be. I mean, I get your point, and I want to point this out to you, Ashley. Okay, I had two labs, beloved dogs, Troy, who was 13, and also Lucy, who lived to age 6. Now there's Lucy, God rest her soul. I do believe dogs go to heaven. I know that's sacred. I believe that. So that's Lucy. But now,
So
Ashley, I now have two rescue dogs. One we're going to show now Jimmy, the junkyard dog. Hold on, we got to put Jimmy up. So Ashley, there's Jimmy. He looks very guilty. I don't know if you can. He looks very guilty. But I agree with you. I love rescue dogs, and I support rescue dogs. I support shelters. I do a lot. But I think this is where PETA kind of loses people. Is it? I don't think people are going to run out. They already know the lab is the most popular dog in the United States. The big hunting dog, bomb sniffing dog. So I don't think it's going to like make people go out and get the labs. You know what I'm saying? So I think people like PETA's lost its mind. They're going to throw like ink on fur and stuff again. I mean, I think people, you know what I mean? I think you kind of lose people with that.
You know, I know what you mean, and we know that this bill is well-intentioned, but we've seen this before. When the movie 101 Dalmatians came out, people rushed out and bought Dalmatians, and so many of those dogs ended up in shelters. It was a crisis. Also, though, you know, if someone is set on a specific breed of dog, including a lab, they should know that of the 6 to 8 million dogs who end up in shelters every year, about 25% of those dogs are purebreds. And in fact, if you go on the website Pet Finder right now, you can see that over 19,000 Labrador retrievers in the U.S. right now are homeless, are looking for good homes, are up for adoption.
Actually, I can't even go to a shelter. Like my kids and I, when we have nothing to do, we just go to shelters. That's like our thing on the weekend. And Raymond's going to laugh at me because I'll invariably bring home another animal because I can't stand it. I can't stand when dogs don't have homes. So I do get it. But I think there's got to be like some kind of happy medium between the purebred people and the shelter people, and I think we got to work it out. But if you can adopt the dog, I like adopting children and I like adopting dogs. I think it's all a good thing.
And that's wonderful.
And as for those Dalmatians, what happened to them? Did they end up getting euthanized, all those cute Dalmatians? Because, you know, I do like Dalmatians, but Cruella de Vil, did she kill them all or what?
Well, about half of the animals who end up in shelters every year, half of the 6 to 8 million ending up in shelters, do end up euthanized for lack of good homes. And I've got to tell you, you know, for dogs, you know, the people who run puppy mills and pet stores are Cruella de Vil because they are sentencing shelter dogs to death every time they sell a dog.
And I think there's some good protections that Ohio has put in place. John Kasich's done it, and that's good stuff. Ashley, it's great to have you on. Thank you so much. And by the way, Joe Biden is threatening the president again, and to Billy Bush.
They asked me, would I like to debate this gentleman? And I said, no. I said, if we were in high school, I'd take him behind the gym and beat the hell out of him.
No. Let me get this straight. At an event to stop assaults, old plugs Biden said he would like to assault the president. That's rich. And then there was this whopper.
No man has a right to touch you, no matter what.
Okay, pot, meet kettle, if you could hear that. So when it comes to unwanted advances, like few have a worse reputation than touchy-feely Uncle Joe. Now, who can forget the oh-so-creepy shoulder rub of Ash Carter's wife during the defense secretary swearing-in ceremony? We see that? Ooh. Ooh. A little higher. We need to organize a rally just to protest that. Well, that was hardly the only time. Biden is the all-time champ in Washington when it comes to unsolicited grabbing, hugging, and...
But it will not stop me from doing what I know is right. I'm here with one goal, helping children and our next generation.
I loved it. I'm so glad she's sticking to her guns, defying all the critics. But I expect the media and the president's enemies will give her plenty of cyberbullying to combat. Keep it up, Melania. Keep going. I just, love that. Well, that's all the time we have left tonight.
Wait. I have something for you. I drew this during the break.
Who allowed you back on the set?
This is what happens. This is you.
Oh, wait, you got to zero in on that.
Jim Carrey has inspired me. I'm now going to do my own caricatures. No more television, no more writing books. I'm just going to draw pictures.
Oh, wait a second. The cross looks like an octopus.
Well,
what is that?
I'll tell you what. We should auction this off, and you should sign it.
I'll auction off for charity. All right.
Okay.
Well,
for Labradors.
Shannon Bream and the Fox News at Night team takes things from here. Miss Shannon, it's great to see you.
All right, great to see you too, Laura. Thank you so much. All right, hello, welcome to Fox News at Night. I'm Shannon Bream. Washington in a swirl tonight. The president and his right-hand man at the White House, quote, furious over a high-level leak that could only have come from a very small handful of staffers. Chief of Staff General John Kelly determined to find the mole, and the White House calling it a fireable offense. And Attorney General Jeff Sessions' own legal counsel says tonight he is not under investigation for perjury. The firm denial comes on the heels of a report that Andrew McCabe, the one-time deputy director of the FBI, fired late Friday by Sessions, had launched a criminal investigation into Sessions at the urging of Democrat senators, including Al Franken, who later resigned over sexual harassment allegations. With all that hanging over the White House, Congress delivers a $1.3 trillion budget deal tonight, chock full of spending increases and only a fraction of the money the president said he wanted for a wall. Reportedly only enough to cover 33 miles of new construction along the southern border. Is the White House going to embrace it anyway? Well, dozens of conservative Republicans are not, citing massive spending increases that include, they say, money for Planned Parenthood the GOP leaders vowed to cut, a new gun control measure, and no check on money flowing to sanctuary cities. It's all against the backdrop of what one prominent Senate Republican says is a new day in American politics. Senator Bob Corker says you, the voters, do not ask him about the issues. Quote, they only want to know if you're with Trump or not. Are GOP lawmakers, as one article today suggests, afraid of locking horns with the president for fear of keeping his base away from the polls come midterms this fall? Corker adding the president's pull is, quote, more than strong. It's tribal in nature. Does Texas Republican Congressman Louis Gohmert agree? Well, he kicks us off on this Wednesday edition of Fox News at Night. Welcome, Congressman. Great to see you.
Always good to be with you. Anytime.
Okay, listen, you should be busy right now because you've got a 2,232-page spending bill to read. You're going to vote on it in a couple of days. How does that work?
Yeah, do you remember in 2010 when we were not in the majority and we kept saying, if you give us the majority, we will read the bill. We had the signs, we read the bill, we will read the bill. And by the way, I did read Obamacare before I voted against it, but this is really tragic. A massive spending bill. And the truth is, the House did our job. We passed 12 appropriations bills, we had a budget, and the Senate didn't do their job. And it doesn't appear they're ever going to until, number one, we get rid of cloture, the 60-vote requirement, and go with 51.
He's ready for it to go.
Oh, yeah. President Trump's been great on that. And then and by the way, the Constitution only requires a majority. That was a superimposition by the Senate. It's not
Majority
required.
Leader Mitch McConnell does not want to get rid of that. He says there are plenty of Democrats and Republicans speaking out saying they don't want to do it.
If you look back before the November 2016 election, he will see that there were Democrats like Schumer that were hinting, you know, maybe it's time to get back to, you know, a majority ruling, and maybe we can't get it done if we do that kind of stuff. And it sure sounded to me like they were preparing to take the majority, get rid of cloture, and stuff it to McConnell and the Republicans. And the fact is, the Constitution requires 51 votes, just a majority. It doesn't require 60. That was the Senate's own rule. The Senate brought that goofy rule into the world, and the Senate with 51 votes can take it out, and I think they should. But the other thing, too, though, is we have got to make clear, and it didn't happen, but we've got to make clear to the Senate, look, we are not going to do another omnibus CR, anything of that nature. You have got to pass your appropriations bills. And I know we've got a committee that's looking into a new budget process that'll work better. But until the House says to the Senate, we're not doing anything until you pass your 12 appropriations bills. We can go to conference on those. We can get it done timely.
Let me read some reaction from Democrats tonight, okay? Let's start with the Senate Democrat leader, the minority leader there, Chuck Schumer. He says, every bill takes compromise, and there was plenty here. But at the end of the day, we Democrats feel very good because so many of our priorities for the middle class were included. House Minority Leader Nancy Pelosi says this: Democrats want explicit language restricting border construction to the same see-through fencing that was already authorized under current law. The bill does not allow any increase in deportation officers or detention beds. Why are Democrats so happy about this thing? I mean,
because it's good for them. Well, they got their priorities in there, and we didn't.
But who's running the show? You guys have the White House, the House, and the Senate.
Well, from what I understand, though, we got the House, they got the Senate, we got the White House, but that's not enough. I think that's ridiculous. We need to make clear to the Democrats we are in the majority, and we'll work with you in a bipartisan way, but we're not giving away the farm like this bill appears to do.
They think it is. Well, okay, so over on the Senate side where you say they've got some work to do, Senator John Kennedy, a Republican, said this: nobody knows what's in it. Okay, we have the text now. He said this before we got the text late tonight. He says, I don't know what's in the damn thing. And I'm quoting, I have no intention of voting for this bill until I know everything that's in it. Whoever came up with this isn't qualified to run a food truck. And by the way, I think there's some fabulous food trucks around here.
There are some great food trucks, and they do a better job on their own budget than we've done with this. You know, we've got less than 30 hours. You know, it's absurd to have us voting, maybe less than 24 actually, that we're supposed to vote on a 2,200-page bill. You know, Obamacare, my copy of it is 2,500 pages, and I went through it, but sadly, I had a lot more time to go through Obamacare than we've got, you know, 24 hours to go through 2,200 pages. I mean, this is so tragic. This is such... and I know that the House did our job, but we shouldn't have allowed the Senate to drag us into this disaster for the American people. The American people spoke in 2016 November, and they made it clear. And as the great President Obama said, elections have consequences, but it appears they didn't in this case. Well, we have got to do a better job. Shannon, it's immoral for this generation to say, we can't control our spending, so we're going to put all of this $1.3 trillion in yet another spending bill for 2018, and you'll have to pay it along the way somewhere.
None of us get to run our budgets like that at home. We'll see what the voters think this fall in the 2018 midterms and whether this kind of thing factors in. Congressman, always great to have you.
It's great to have you. This is a rather dark day.
Well, you're not the only one who feels that way. We know a lot of conservative Republicans who said, no way, they're not voting for this. So we'll watch and see.
Well, we've got some amendments before the Rules tonight, the Rules Committee. Let's see if some of those rules allow our amendments so that we can actually get some good things in there.
We'll get you a Red Bull on the way out, all right? Thanks for stopping in.
I got my Dr. Pepper.
Okay. Well, national correspondent Ed Henry has more on a totally different story. The latest now on reports surrounding the Attorney General, as well as the recent leaks that have left the White House not happy. Ed?
Great to see you, Shannon. That's right. Breaking tonight, the Attorney General's personal lawyer is telling Fox he is not under criminal investigation for lying to Congress about his Russia contacts. And attorneys also saying the Attorney General has been told by the Office of Special Counsel Robert Mueller he is not being investigated for perjury either. We're learning this because of what appears to be yet another leak from people friendly to former FBI Deputy Director Andrew McCabe. ABC News quoting anonymous sources who said McCabe months ago oversaw a criminal probe of whether Sessions made false statements, a leak that seemed designed to question if this influenced Sessions' decision to terminate McCabe Friday night for ironically leaking and lying. The key for Sessions is it appears the investigation of him is over. People close to him note the removal of McCabe was all about the FBI's own Office of Professional Responsibility saying McCabe had to go, a sentiment that FBI Director Christopher Wray seemed to endorse today in an interview with NBC News.
I'm committed to doing things objectively and independently and by the book. I think that has to extend not just to our investigations, our intelligence analysis, but it also has to extend to personnel decisions and disciplinary decisions.
Meanwhile, officials making it clear tonight President Trump is livid about a separate leak of details of his phone call with Vladimir Putin. White House Chief of Staff John Kelly thought he had weeded out the leakers, but we're told he's frustrated, deeply disappointed, because clearly they still have at least one mole inside the White House. They are particularly angry over just how detailed this leak was about the phone call between the president and Vladimir Putin. The Washington Post reporting the president ignored briefing materials that said in all caps, quote, do not congratulate Putin over his reelection. Only a small number of senior aides have access to these note cards. That's why a senior official told us this is not just a fireable offense, but also may be criminal. The president late today sharply defended his decision to congratulate Putin, saying despite their differences, he wants a cordial relationship so Russia might help with ISIS, North Korea, Syria, and Iran. And while former Democratic cabinet official Leon Panetta said he believes the president should have been tougher about pressing Putin about meddling in the 2016 campaign, plus allegations that Russia used nerve gas in the UK, this former Clinton and Obama official agreed with the president that he needs to work with adversaries like Putin.
Presidents talk to kings and emperors and tyrants, regardless of whether or not they were elected with any kind of democratic process or not. So I think the president has a right to talk to Putin and to obviously see if there are areas that they can agree with.
In fact, then President